Okay, welcome to another prepared flight simulator video. Thought I would go ahead and do at least one more of these videos to show off a little bit more of the graphics. Flying over Florida isn't real interesting from a graphics point of view because Florida has an average elevation of just like 100 feet, so it's pretty much flat as a pancake. There's not a lot to look at. Back when I was actively flying with Microsoft Flight Simulator, I used to like to fly occasionally around the mountains of Colorado just because it's more interesting to look at. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Let me turn off the brakes and we're going to get airborne, and then we'll kind of explain things as I go. Let me take a look down here quickly and put the flaps down one notch. And I think I've got the elevator trim set better this time, so we shouldn't pitch up so steeply like we did in the last video. Alright, let's roll down the runway full power. And again, I'm going to have to yaw a bit to the right to offset for the, I guess it's probably the engine torque. And I don't know quite what liftoff speed is. I have to look up some details about this aircraft. But probably somewhere around here we can start pitching up. And let's raise the landing gear. And yeah, this amount of elevator trim feels much better for takeoff. Okay, so basically we're gonna fly from one small airport to another small airport here in the mountains, just to have a little bit more graphic detail to look at. And we're going to go to a heading of, gotta think about it for a second. It's gonna go to a heading of 82 here in a moment. As soon as I guess I still have too much pitch on takeoff because it's really wanting to pull up. So I'll just have to make a note for future flights. So we're going to go through a cloud here. We'll be out of it in just a moment. And let's see, 82, that's going to be almost straight behind us, so it doesn't really matter which way we turn. So let's go ahead and turn to the left. We'll bank to the left. I had a whole flight plan sort of set up a long time ago, man. It's 2013, almost 2014 now, so it's been probably close to 7 years since I set up this flight plan, and it was to start out at KHDN, and then I would fly from there to KGNB, and then I would fly from there to KEGE, and I had a whole set of airports here in the mountains that I would fly from. And whenever I wasn't wanting to fly around home, around Florida, this was probably my second most common destination or whatever, to fly from. I was just to fly around the mountains of Colorado. And I just did a bunch of flying one day and picked out a whole set of airports, and I would just jump back and forth between them. Okay, so we almost have our heading, about 82 degrees, and I'm actually going to have to set the course as well, so alright, there we go. So let me just kind of level out the aircraft and set the altimeter. It's set, and I know from past experience that I'm going to have to climb a bit. I believe the elevation of KGNB, the elevation's 8,200 feet, but before getting there we have to go over a mountain, which is going to be substantially higher than that, so we'll have to get to an altitude of 12 or 13,000 feet perhaps. And again, I like to have a little bit of weather. I don't really like to fly necessarily just with crystal clear skies all the time. I think it just looks a little nicer to have a little bit of cloud buildup or something, but if it's too thick here, I might go ahead and clear the weather in a moment. Right, putting in a bit more down elevator just to keep myself from climbing so much, and I got a pretty good wind gust right there. And I'm off track already. My heading has already slipped around to 73. Now it must be from that wind shear. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to fight the weather a bit here. That's fine. I'm gonna have to figure out how to set the course knob. I don't see it. There it is. Never mind. It's in a slightly different position on this aircraft, so I'm gonna set the course to 82. Actually, let's set it for right there. So now I'm flying directly toward the first VOR, and I don't really need to fly VOR because obviously this aircraft has a sophisticated GPS, but when I set this up originally, I set it all up for VOR to VOR. And you can see right now, if you look here in the center view, this green line indicates that I'm flying straight to the VOR, which is a frequency 112.20. And from KHDN, it was a heading of 82. But since I've taken off and got, turned around a bit, my heading's just a little bit different. So now I'm flying at a heading of 80 instead of 82, but straight from the airport, it's a heading of 82. And I can see this needle is actually starting to drift a bit to the right. So I'm going to bank just a tad bit to the right. Maybe get over 82 degrees now, in fact. Maybe even 83. And now we'll go back to straight and level flight. And that will get me lined up a little bit better with that VOR. Although I currently don't actually know what my distance to that VOR is. Need to figure out where that information's located. Because it's only 15 miles from the starting airport to the VOR. So just bear with me for a moment while I try to locate the distance. And I don't see it. It's, of course, the distance right now that I'm getting here, that 1,300 nautical miles, that's the distance to the airport that I have set up, which is KCGC, that's Crystal River. Obviously, we're not flying to Crystal River. Okay, my needle's a bit off, so I'm just banking a bit to the left to get back on track. And it looks like I'm actually diving. Oh yeah, let me set the flaps. I keep forgetting to adjust the flaps. Did I raise the landing gear even? Yeah, I did. I keep going the wrong way with the flaps too. So now I've got the flaps all the way up. Well, I can tell I'm definitely pitching way down. I did decrease the sensitivity of the elevator a bit, but it still feels very, very sensitive. So let's actually bank a bit to the left because we got a bit of a peak here in front of us and we want to fly around that. Plus I'm a bit off. I can tell my needle's a bit out. There we go. Now we're getting more centered. I must be getting really close to the VOR because it's dancing all over the place. Alright, well, that being the case, then we need to adjust our course. Now we're going to fly to 106. Man, I can't tell how far I am from the VOR. Oh, I just flew over top of it. I can see down here. Okay. Yeah, that was the VOR. Okay. So now we need to fly to 106. So I'm going to do a course adjustment. So we're going to fly at 106 away from that VOR. Man, I am diving into the ground. Okay, so let's set that. I usually fly way better than this, but I'm having to look at information that's not in the place that I'm used to seeing it. Okay, so now we're at 115. With our current heading, you can see that needle starting to come in to the center, and once that centers up, then we'll need to bank to the left and get onto our course of 106. And 106 will take us all the way over to that airport, which again, that's KGNB. And you can see that, you know, even though we're at 9,000, almost 10,000 feet, we're just barely, you know, above the ground. Okay, we're lined up now with the needle, so let's bank to the left a bit so we can fly a course of 106. That's overshot a bit, that's okay. Alright, well, for the moment, at least, I'm going to go ahead and engage the autopilot just so I can concentrate more on looking at the information. So, let me turn on the altitude hold. And actually, I should set the altitude before I do that. That's retarded. So let me turn that off. And we're going to set the altitude to at least 10 or, well, probably 12,000, because I know there's a mountain that we have to go climb over top of before we get to the airport that we're flying toward. Okay, altitude's at 12,000. You can see that there. So now I'll engage the altitude hold. I'm not having to fight that so much. And we'll go ahead and leave the heading off, and we'll fly that, at least that part, manually. So now that I've got that set, let me go ahead and undock that window so it puts it back up on my other screen. And actually, for whatever reason, it's wanting to steer the vessel as well. So let me see what I gotta do to just make sure that I have control of the steering. Not sure what I have to turn off for that, because I don't have the heading autopilot engaged. But when I bank to the left, okay, well now it's giving me control. Okay, weird. Anyway, so well, we need to bank to the left a little bit anyway, because you can see down here our navigation needle's off from the course. Let me check the course one more time to make sure it's set right. Actually, it was a little bit off anyway, so okay, there we go. Now I've got a course of 106. So let's bank a bit to the right. And we'll go for about 1010 maybe. Maybe about right there, 108, 109. And now we're flying, you know, a bit farther to the right than we need to be, so this needle will eventually straighten up with that green line, and that's how we know that we're on our way to the proper heading. And now we can just kind of focus on enjoying the view a little bit more. So we've got the altitude hold autopilot engaged. And got a much prettier view of the world with these mountains. And we'll take a quick look outside. And really nice looking default textures, in my opinion. Real pretty view. And Shift S to come back inside. And our heading is way off, so we need to bank to the left. So we're now flying at 120. You can see down here we need to be at 106. So we're flying away from that last VOR, and as long as we fly with a heading of 106, or I should say a course, because of course we have to adjust the heading to stay on course. But if we fly at a course of 106, then we will fly right over top of KGNB. What I don't see though is what my distance from the VOR is. I'm trying to figure out where that's at. Because I need to fly for 49 miles from that VOR. Of course, at this point, I've actually made this flight enough times that I kind of know that the airport, I know pretty well where it's at, just VFR-wise. But I want to have a distance readout to tell me how far away I am from that VOR. I don't see it. Just bear with me while I look around the instrument panel here a little bit. So yeah, I don't see where it tells me what the distance is. And it's pretty important to know that because I need to know when you're in low visibility, you need to know how close or far you are from your VOR or whatever, distance measuring equipment that you're using. Let me try, yeah, not that. Here, no, that's not that. Not that. And not that. Okay. Well, I hope 12,000 feet's enough to get over top of these. Get over top of all these mountains that are between me and the airport. I'm pretty sure I gotta fly over top of that. And I don't recall what the altitude of those mountains are. But it looks to me like I'm a bit low, so I'm going to raise my altitude to at least 14. So you can see that climbing here. And since I've got the altitude hold autopilot on, it will automatically adjust the trim wheel and get me a positive rate of climb up to that point. Alright, so that's 14,000 feet. Actually, let me look at the GPS. Actually, you know what? That's KGNB right there. Okay. So we are as high as we need to be. I just got here a lot faster than I expected to. Okay, and altitude hold off. And the sense being that this airport's kind of at the bottom of a bowl of mountains, you really gotta descend quite rapidly. But you get here a lot faster flying this aircraft than you do with the Cessna, because I'm used to this being, a much longer flight. But yeah, once you get over top that mountain, the first thing you gotta do is just descend rapidly. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to figure out how to bring up the distance on the glass cockpit view to know how close I am from a VOR, how far away I am, even though, you know, really you should probably just be using GPS, but I kind of like doing VOR flights for the fun of it. Okay, so you can see we're approaching the runway. And I'm going to go ahead and throw the landing gear down now, so I'll forget about it. Put in a bit of throttle because we're slowing down pretty fast. But yeah, again, I really like flying around these mountains. We're a little bit low. You can see the two red lights on the runway. And here we are, coming in. Whoa, whoa, don't want to hit the fence. Oh, that's not a very good landing. Wow, that's terrible. That's a crash. Well, it's a pretty horrible landing. Well, crash. I don't suppose it would kill us, though. Okay, well, that's obviously going to be the end of that flight. And if you liked it, let me know. Leave a comment down below, and maybe I'll do some more flight sim stuff on my channel. I just don't know if it's interesting enough compared to Orbiter. But leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. And I will see you in the next video. And let's raise the landing gear. And yeah, this amount of elevator trim feels much better for takeoff. Okay, so basically we're gonna fly from one small airport to another small airport here in the mountains, just to have a little bit more graphic detail to look at. And we're gonna go to a heading of, gotta think about it for a second, in the last video. Alright, let's roll down the runway full power. And again, I'm going to have to yaw a bit to the right to offset for the, I guess it's probably the engine torque. And I don't know quite what liftoff speed is. I have to look up some details about this aircraft. But probably somewhere around here we can start pitching up. It's gonna go to a heading of 82 here in a moment. As soon as I guess I still have too much pitch on takeoff because it's really wanting to pull up. So I'll just have to make a note for future flights. So we're gonna go through a cloud here. We'll be out of it in just a moment. And let's see, 82. That's gonna be occasionally around the mountains of Colorado, just because it's more interesting to look at. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Let me turn off the brakes, and we're going to get airborne, and then we'll kind of explain things as I go. Let me take a look down here quickly and put the flaps down one notch. And I think I've got the elevator trim set better this time, so we shouldn't pitch up so steeply like we did. Okay, welcome to another prepared flight simulator video. Thought I would go ahead and do at least one more of these videos to show off a little bit more of the graphics. Flying over Florida isn't real interesting from a graphics point of view because Florida has an average elevation of just like 100 feet, so it's pretty much flat as a pancake. There's not a lot to look at. Back when I was actively flying with Microsoft Flight Simulator, I used to like to fly